everyone. Hi. We're here today to talk about, for the Cambridge Compact is sponsoring this event, and we are going to talk about energy efficiency in multifamily buildings and incentives that are out there if you haven't tapped them before, to make sure everybody's aware of what's available. So first I wanted to get started by asking everyone to sign in. If you haven't signed in, I think we'll pass around the sign-in sheet. And today this will be recorded, this session. It's a workshop that will be on the Cambridge Compact site. If you do need to forward it on to someone, it'll be available. Also, the PowerPoint presentations will be available on the website as well. So before we get started, I thought I would try and find a little bit about you guys. Multifamily building owners, multifamily building managers of properties, or other people. I'm curious, how many people are representing an owner of a multifamily building who are here today? Okay. And how about managers of property buildings? Okay, and then other? Okay, so a lot of others. That's good. That's helpful for us as we try and define what the different programs are that you guys might be interested in. So, Dina, I've got to get my presentation up. Do you want to help me? So today what we're going to be doing is going through the Mass Save incentives that are available, the Mass CEC incentives that are available, as well as City of Cambridge incentives. And then so there'll be speakers for the first hour, and then we will break up and we have different tables for you to interact with the different vendors that you might want to sign up for. I think everybody has a sign-up sheet, and everybody has information about their programs as well. So my name is Beverly Craig. I work for Homeowners Rehab. We are an owner and developer of affordable housing in Cambridge, and we own 73 multifamily buildings. So we own a lot. There's a lot of variety in our portfolio, everything from a 6-unit buildings, lots of 6-unit small scattered site buildings, to a 300-unit high-rise. So I'll be here at the end of the session. If you guys have a building that's anywhere in between those, I'd be happy to compare notes and talk about your building and maybe share some things that we've learned from our properties. So I'm here to basically be a cheerleader for energy efficiency. Why should you care about energy efficiency? So there's obviously some large global reasons why, climate change being the number one thing, and obviously mitigating climate change. I think the City of Cambridge has done an excellent job of looking at how climate change is going to affect Cambridge. The two main things being increased temperatures during the summer, and then also additional flooding, because rain events will happen, a lot more rain in shorter periods of time, which will overload the stormwater system and lead to a lot of basement flooding. So those are big global reasons, but there's a lot of reasons that are specific to the building and building owners' self-interest as well. The first one being cost savings. So cost savings, the thing about doing a heating retrofit or a lighting retrofit or a water retrofit is that you're going to get a savings not only for 1 year, but an ongoing savings. So you have to think about, that's one of the nice things about utility savings, is that it's one of the parts of the budget that you can actually impact. Insurance rates tend to go up. City taxes tend to go up. But energy is something that you could actually take a bite out of. And so it's important to focus on that. And it's not just about saving money, it's also about increasing the comfort of your tenants, especially on heating retrofits, air sealing and insulation, and sometimes boiler retrofits, especially if you're adding zoning, will increase the tenant's comfort. And that's going to lead to greater tenant satisfaction, lower turnover, lower vacancy, and all that helps the bottom line as well, on top of that actual energy savings or water savings that you're going to get. So just as background on Homeowners Rehab, we have 1,200 units in Cambridge, and we do spend a lot on utilities, $1.7 million a year. And just to give you some perspective about, almost half of that is water. That surprises people a lot of times. But water is very expensive in Cambridge, and we pay that for every building. Typically, we do have common boilers for our buildings, and so we're paying the heat. We tend to pay all the water, and then we usually pay common area electric only. So just the basement, the laundry room, meeting rooms, stairwells, those kinds of things. So I think that's pretty typical for a lot of multifamily buildings in Cambridge. We do have a lot of variety in our buildings. I mentioned that before. But we've been very active in doing energy retrofits across the board. So we've done 27 lighting retrofits, 12 heating retrofits, and across the portfolio we've done water retrofits. We've also been very active in solar installations. So basically any time that we do a new roof, we try and do a solar evaluation to see whether it would be a good payback period. And Homeowners Rehab tends to invest in anything that has a payback period less than 10 years on solar. So since a baseline of 2006, we've been able to reduce our energy use by about 21%, so the gas and electricity use. And that's saving us, actually that savings underestimates, is about $375,000 per year now from all of our heating retrofits, lighting retrofits, and water retrofits. So it does really add up across your whole portfolio. So to give you an example, this is our largest building. This is a 300-unit building right along Memorial Drive. And we did a lighting retrofit here, just the common areas. There is a garage there, and there's a lot of lighting that is required to be on 24 hours a day. And so we installed LED lights. There's bi-level lighting in the areas that are required to have 24-hour lighting. So there's a low level of lighting that has an occupancy sensor that kicks up to a higher level when someone enters the hallway. And we're saving about $24,000 a year. So it's quite a bit. And we did get incentives towards that lighting retrofit. Water retrofit, I think, has the quickest payback periods involved. This is a 77-unit building, Auburn Court, and garden-style apartments. And we put in new flappers, low-flow shower heads, 1.5 shower heads, and I'd be happy to talk to you about which are our favorite shower heads that the tenants don't take out. We put in aerators, so kitchen aerators at 1.5 gallons per minute and bathroom at 0.5. And we had a 6-month payback period on this project, and it's saving $18,000 a year. So you do have to go back with flappers more often. I mean, the biggest thing with flappers is they tend to harden and start leaking slowly. And since the tenants don't pay for the water, they don't always tell you that it's leaking. So you do have to go back on those kinds of retrofits and replace the flappers more often too. So in addition, so I didn't mention heating retrofits, but a lot of ours are heating retrofits, adding insulation, air sealing, and boilers. But I have some examples of how we track those. So we use a software program called WegoWise. It stands for Water, Electricity, Gas, and Oil. And we have representatives from WegoWise here, if you guys are interested in finding out more about it. What it does is it automatically grabs our utility data from the websites and charts and graphs it. And that's really, really useful to us in a lot of different ways. But the three main ways are to benchmark our properties, to measure the results of the retrofit so I can tell you how much we're saving, and then recognizing problems with different properties. So benchmarking, the idea here is, like with cars, we all understand benchmarking. There's how many miles per gallon a car uses. So a Hummer is probably 4, and a Prius can be 50. And so we know, because we have that miles per gallon, we can't know how to compare them. Buildings, what you want to do is compare how many BTUs per square foot a building is using, and you want to equalize for how cold the weather is or warm the weather is by heating degree days. And so when we first started putting things into WegoWise, we found that our properties, which were pretty efficient overall as a portfolio compared to a lot of others, we found a 3-to-1 ratio between our energy hogs and our most efficient buildings. So some of them were using 3 times the energy per square foot. And I think that's very typical. If you have multiple buildings and you put them in, you'll find that there's often some that jump out as energy hogs and some that are doing really well. So that helps you prioritize which buildings you should really focus on. This is to track the results of a retrofit. So this is in WegoWise. It's showing a year-over-year comparison based on a building upgrade. This was an atmospheric boiler being switched to a condensing boiler, and it had a 29% natural gas reduction in the usage just by switching out the boiler. So by tracking it in WegoWise, you're able to see what impact the changes are that you've made. And then finally, tracking definitely helps you identify problems. So this is from a property called Trolley Square. And it was a new construction project built in 2007. And it was our first LEED building that we ever did. And the orange line is green buildings that are in WegoWise. So they're able to track other buildings in Massachusetts that are similar that have a green certification like LEED or Energy Star. And so the orange line is that, and Trolley Square, our new building, is the green. And you see in that first year, 2007, that we have this weird spiking going on. So it's a green building. We thought everything was great and we'd be doing wonderful and better than most green buildings, but it turned out it was doing some weird spiking. So we brought in a commissioning agent. In this particular case, we had condensing boilers, but there was not enough gas pressure being supplied to the condensing boilers to condense. And so we added a high pressure line, and then the next year it got better. So you see the second year it's getting closer, but it's still doing a little weird stuff. And so we looked closer. There were a lot of tenant complaints about overheating, and it turned out that the heating contractor was able to identify that there had been a manufacturing defect in the TACO valves. So the TACO valves on your radiators, they control how much water flows through. So when somebody adjusts the thermostat, the TACO valve adjusts how much hot water goes through. And so there was manufacturing defect, and all 200 TACO valves were stuck in open position. So it was still under warranty, so we were able to get those fixed. And you see in 2009, 2010, we did better than most Energy Star buildings for 2 years. And then 2011, something happened which I don't think I would have ever figured out if it wasn't for WegoWise, which is we had a variable speed drive on the pumps that had a programming error, and it was running 24/7. And so, again, the line went above what other green buildings do in 2011. We fixed that problem in 2012 and have been doing better than most green buildings since that time. So I would say tracking is probably the place that WegoWise saves us the most money, especially on water leaks. Unfortunately, Cambridge right now is only reporting every 3 months for water bills, but they have RFP'd for a new system that's going to do daily reporting. Once that's up and running, you'd be able to catch leaks almost immediately by looking at your WegoWise data and how it changes over time. So basically, I just want to make sure that you guys listen carefully to the incentives that are out there, take advantage of them, make sure to benchmark your properties, monitor the savings that you have, because it's really important to track those savings. It makes it much more important to your investors or the owners of the building when they realize what kind of savings you're actually seeing. And then it's more than just savings. It's also about comfort and lower turnover, too. So I'm going to hand it over to Mass Save and Marge, who's going to talk about Mass Save's program for multifamily buildings.
Thanks, Bev. Am I allowed to stand? It's the teacher, former teacher in me. Is that all right? Volume good for recording? Oh, I can do that. I can do that. Yeah, great. Thanks. Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. Thanks for taking time out of your busy schedules as property, anyhow related with a property. I know time is precious, so really appreciate it. And a call out to Beverly, Nicole, and the other members of the CEA for putting this together. So well done. Well done. So again, as Beverly said, my name's Marge Kelly. I work with Eversource. I have with me my counterpart, Bill Footer. He's with Clear Result, who's our lead vendor. So anything today that I say, I want you to walk away with one theme. Call us, call us, call us. If you haven't already, please do. We'll be here through the end of the presentation and addition the hour afterwards. So we're here, we're captive, you have us. They'll not let us out the door. So I have a couple quick questions similar to Bev. Who's heard of Mass Save? Okay, let's rephrase that. Who has not heard of Mass Save? Awesome. So a more critical question, important question. Who knows where the money for the Mass Save program comes from? Come on, everybody. Who pays the bills? Your utility bill for electric, natural gas. That's where the money comes from. So it comes from you as ratepayers. It comes from your tenants as ratepayers. Again, I'm here on behalf of Mass Save. I do work for Eversource because we are the utility provider in the city for gas, natural gas, and electricity. So that's why you're stuck with me today. So thanks, Vina. One moment. Anyone know a good joke? There you go. Thanks. I'm going to brag about the parking spot I got. A block away. I do need to run out 2:30 and fill the meter up. Don't tell the police. But I will be back.
Yes.
There you go. Thank you. Great. Okay, so again, that's the setup for the bottom. I call it the racing car logos. Across the state, we have multiple utilities and the Cape Light Compact that administer the program. You're, again, Eversource territory for natural gas and electricity, so that's why Eversource is here representing the Mass Save program today. Just to tee up what we're talking about today, we're talking about existing multifamily buildings. We're talking about 5 units or more. Can be a string of townhomes, can be a garden-style apartment, can be a 300-unit, multiple-story high-rise building. The criteria is 5 units. And the small print on the bottom, really take note of that. Existing buildings that are not eligible for the low-income program, which is administered through Mass Save umbrella under LEAN. And our acronym, I'm just not going to remember all the words for, but Beverly can speak much better to LEAN, and I believe most of your portfolio falls under LEAN, if not all of it. So again, what I'm speaking about today is directly just for market rate, non-low-income eligible buildings. But as a resource, Bill and I can speak to the other programs and also, again, be an intake for if you have a 1 to 4 unit building. We'll be happy to bring that information back to actually Bill's counterpart that addresses those buildings. If you do have a low-income eligible building and you have never reached out to LEAN, I'll be more than happy to take your contact information. Again, consider this as a hands-on, in-person resource so that we can get your building at least in that correct Mass Save program. And the last point there, for those of you familiar with the Mass Save multifamily existing building, we used to have this criteria of it could only address measures that were off of a meter that was residentially metered for the utility. Does anybody know off the top of their head if you pay a bill, whether it's off a residential meter or a commercial meter? Unless you're in my side of the business, you just know you got a bill. You have to pay it, right? So that criteria was sunsetted about 18 months ago, so that don't get caught up in, do I contact the commercial Mass Save program or do I go to the multifamily? If it's a multifamily building of 5+ units, existing building, this is the program that you should be reaching out to. Straightforward. As we all know, dealing with multifamilies, they're never always straightforward, right? Just when you think you have them nailed down. I had a site a few months ago. It was about 1,000 units, obviously in the suburbs. 900 of the 1,000 units were naturally gas heated. One set of buildings were oil heated still. Believe it or not, oil heated. So just when we thought we had it nailed down that this would be the correct path, we realized we have oil heat there. So why that comes into play is the calculations for the savings for attributed measures. So with that said, I think, Bill, between us, I have over 15 years with multifamily buildings. Bill, there you go. So we started in grade school. Just to give you guys, I'm not going to give examples or case studies like Bev did. I just want to tease you, just want to get you interested, want to get you to reach out to us. What we do is a building assessment. I don't use any level audits that sometimes are required for your financing entities. They do a walkthrough assessment, no cost. They look for opportunities starting from the top of the building, the attic, building envelope, the sides, basements, and in between. You have 4 major components, right, that is using energy for heating and cooling of the space, conditioning the space, lighting, hot water, and what was that other one I missed?
Lighting, water, heating, cooling.
Your plug-in load, right, everything else, your refrigerators, your TVs, monitors, et cetera, et cetera. Again, as I said, don't get caught up in whether it's residential, commercial, it's market rate, multifamily, 5+ units. This is the program for you. Bill, or a member of his team, would be your initial and your primary point of contact. So again, we're not going to do that hot potato. No, it's not us. You have to talk to somebody else over here. No, it's not us. You have to talk to somebody over here. Somebody from Clear Result, who again is a lead vendor for the program, they would walk you through that initial assessment through any identified measures, and including a contract or any other opportunities, such as some rebates when you talk about condos. Anyone here representing condominiums? We can have a discussion just on condominiums, right? There's a different mechanism in sometimes identifying the correct decision makers or decision maker. Also, that last bullet, believe it or not, we still have some buildings in Cambridge specifically that are on a deliverable fuel. Deliverable fuel means they heat with natural gas. They don't heat with natural gas or electricity. They heat with oil or propane. So if you have any experience with the program, prior to late spring last year, we couldn't use the program dollars that came, again, from utility bills, natural gas and electric utility bills. We couldn't use them for deliverable oil or propane heated sites, heat or hot water. As of last spring, we can. So again, if your building tried to participate before, but it wasn't eligible because it was oil heated, please reach out to us. It's now eligible. Just back one. Okay. I call these some isms, right? Directly installed measures. Again, no cost assessment, but then look at these 5 bullets. You also get the opportunity for identified, installed at no cost, LED lighting. Shower heads or radars, as Bev mentioned. You also have the opportunity to have those installed at no cost. And when I say no cost, I'm talking material and labor, M&L. Programmable thermostats, as we get past programmable being the state of the art, we're going to, what's the latest? Smart Wi-Fi, right? So it's not quite ready for prime time, but we're getting closer to Wi-Fi being available through the program. Smart strips, that's the plug, so that you don't have that phantom load on all the time. And then the last bullet, which, again, I understand most of this audience are making decision makers for the common area, the non-dwelling unit measures. That last bullet is for fixtures that are eligible. There's only a $25 copay. You have a quick question?
I didn't understand what a smart strip is.
Oh, sorry, smart strip. I didn't bring any props. It's a fancy, oh boy.
Like a power strip.
Power strip, thank you. I was up late last night. They sent me over to Martha's Vineyard. A power strip, and you have multiple ports, and maybe the first 2 ports will be on all the time. Whatever you plug into those first 2 ports needs to be on 24/7. The other ports will be tripped depending on what it's used for. So, for example, do you need your cable box on 24 hours a day? No. It's a smart strip. It'll sense that you have the load plugged, the plug in that port for that load to go off, so it's not pulling the juice to feed that cable box to keep that little monitor on. So that's a long-winded explanation, I think, but did I answer your question? Yes?
As far as I know, the LED screw-in light bulbs are not supposed to be used for enclosed light fixtures.
Any technical questions like that, I would request come over and talk to us later on. Just, again, high level, the LEDs are replacing the CFLs. CFLs replace the incandescents. So I'm calling it, this is the generation of lighting we have now, LEDs. Again, I can't speak for specific make and manufacturers regarding whether or not they recommend LED, but we'll be glad to talk offline a little bit more about that. Okay, so the next slide is, again, continue with some measures. There's no way to put a full list of measures that are available through the program. The bottom line is, if a measure saves energy, we either have a prescriptive rebate for it, or we can do a custom incentive based off of the energy savings of that measure or measures being scoped out. But again, just high level insulation, about 75% of that project, up to $2,000 per unit, could be covered. Air sealing. Air sealing, what does that mean? Air sealing. It's drafty in here, right? The duct. It could be duct sealing too. That's a little different, but it's drafty in here. So the comfort that comes with air sealing, there's no cost for that. Before you do any insulation, just rule of thumb, right? You want to plug up any penetrations coming through that attic because there's air escaping. Heating systems, we have rebates for heating systems, and again, it covers not just natural gas, but oil deliverable systems. We do have incentives, rebates for that, and we also for hot water systems. I didn't talk about hot water yet, but as Bev said, not just your consumption of hot water for your metering for portable water, but also to make that water hot. That's the energy savings on our side that the program covers. And again, that fourth bullet, as we look more comprehensively at a building and any opportunities, there's drives, motors, circulating pumps, occupancy sensors. Bev brought out a good example. A lot of people leave lights on 24/7 in common areas. Do they need to be on by the municipality 24/7? More than likely not in the city of Cambridge. Do they, Megan? No. Bi-level lighting, right? So that you have full brightness when somebody's there, and then you bring it down. And then the last bullet, again, for those condo building owners or decision makers, the heat loan is eligible for individual unit occupants. And again, Bill and I are going to be here if you have any more questions specific to that. Again, the takeaway, call the number here, but you have us here today. Please come up. We can answer specific questions, if not about a technology or a fixture, but also about the program in general. And I see a question, a hand up in the back. A quick question.
I know you probably do like windows and doors, that kind of thing. Do you do the penetrations under your kitchen sink?
The plumbing penetrations, right. Particularly that and the attic space. There's a lot of air. Again, that conditions. Think of the building like an envelope, right? You want to keep that conditioned air, be it hot or cold, that you're paying to keep warm or cold in the unit. So yes, plumbing penetrations. Through the attic space, through the walls.
And do you do blower door tests? Or do you
We don't. In multifamily program, we don't do blower doors tests. And I don't get a building science here, but there's a lot of discussion nationwide on how to correctly blower door test multifamily buildings. But again, we'll be here if you want to talk a little bit more about that. That'd be great. Yes? Could it potentially save energy for a building? Yes. Again, that's something, we're looking at the whole building now, holistically. We're not just looking at these, easy measures, right? We're not just looking at screwing in a light bulb, changing out an aerator from a shower head that was using 2.5 or 3 GPM, gallons per minute, to a 1.5. We want to look at everything, every opportunity, and that's why Bill, it is highly trained, all BPI certified staff will go through and look at any opportunity. Yeah.
Save number, or is that specifically for multifamily?
That's specifically to the multifamily Another acronym, I work for a utility, indulge me, MMI, the Multifamily Market Integrator. So that's specifically for multifamily enrollment. You're welcome. Yes?
My building was assessed maybe 6-7 years ago. Would I be eligible to have it done again?
We're on that cusp. I put it this way, give us a call or come see us. Yeah, let's re-engage. As I have a captive member in the audience who works for the City of Cambridge. We are also going and looking back at buildings that did come through the program. For example, the oil buildings that formerly couldn't participate, now they can. If an ERV is being recommended or some more sophisticated building systems being recommended that wasn't, for whatever reason, addressed before, give us a call. Yeah. Worst case scenario, we'll say, we've reviewed everything, nothing's left to do, but best case scenario, there might be 1 or 2 things we can do. If nothing else, educate, right? If we need some education tools, which, just a shout out to Nicole, we do have a one-pager that you might be able to make use of for your tenants and or your condo board and or neighbors to use, because I find, allow me another minute, I promise, my soapbox, education is the key to a lot of this stuff moving forward, right? People just don't know. It's getting to the point where we've gone from calling it curly Q CFL light bulbs to LEDs. People understand that now. That's been my short 15 years, that knowledge. But there's still more. There's still more. To Val's point, water. Anything else, Val, before I shoot it off? Thank you, everyone, for your attention.
Okay. Yep. Okay. I will also stand, I guess. Okay. Thank you, everyone. Thanks for joining us. My name is Nikhil Nadkarni. I'm a energy planner here at the City of Cambridge, and I want to take a couple of minutes to talk about some of the pilots that we've kicked off over the past couple of years to help buildings, save energy, save money, become more comfortable. But I think the main thing I want to highlight is we've had the opportunity to work with Eversource on a very exciting Cambridge-specific pilot, so that combines some of the great programs that Marge talked about with some of the energy-saving solar programs that I'll talk about in just a second. So we've been working on energy efficiency for a long time. We created Cambridge Energy Alliance in 2007 to provide some of the community-level outreach around home energy assessments, on solar, on LEDs, things like that. 2 years ago, we adopted, the City Council adopted the Net Zero Action Plan, which is a vision and a specific set of actions that we as a community can take to get to a point where we have really no carbon emissions from our buildings' energy use. And that's sort of a 25-year plan. And energy efficiency, really identifying these waste energy sources and eliminating them is a big part of how we're going to get there. We've been fortunate to be able to work with Eversource, with Mass Save, with some of the institutions in Cambridge, with the HRI, in implementing this vision. So Beverly mentioned WeGoWise, and one of the things that we kicked off last summer is a free WeGoWise pilot program, and it's been really successful, so we're hoping to expand it this year. Since Bev covered this, I don't need to go into too much detail, but management tool with, here's a screenshot of that dashboard. You're getting to see how your building compares to similar buildings on water, electric, gas, and oil, if that's applicable. And as Bev mentioned, we've heard a lot of buildings that use it to identify their performance before and after retrofits, to see what the spikes are and catch them before they get worse, and ultimately to identify savings opportunities. So the City of Cambridge is sponsoring WeGoWise for 1 year for completely free, for no cost to the building, for any multifamily property that's interested. Naturally, it works better if there is sort of a common load, like a central heating system or a major electrical load that you have in your building. But any multifamily building that's interested, it's first come, first served, and we'd be happy to make this available to any of you that are interested. We have a couple of licenses left this year, and are hoping to sort of re-up the number of licenses later this summer so we can expand it to more buildings. But as part of this offering, you would receive WeGoWise Premium reporting service, and we've sort of worked with WeGoWise to include a sort of a support service in helping buildings get started that might not have used an energy management tool before. So as I understand, it's been really easy for buildings to participate. You know, they're just providing a copy of one bill, and the WeGoWise staff sort of gets them set up on the dashboard after that. We also have a offering as part of this where WeGoWise can do a monthly check-in call, help you understand what you're looking at in that report, help you understand which programs might make the most sense to use based on what they're seeing in the data. Over the past year, we've enrolled buildings that range from a 15-unit condo in East Cambridge up to a 400-unit apartment building. They're all enrolled. They're receiving these monthly reports. And basically, this encompasses about 1,800 households, you know, given the range of buildings and the size of the buildings that are participating. So if you're interested, just come and talk to me over here afterwards, and we can get you signed up. So the this might be the older set of slides, but yeah, because I think Aaron's slide should be after this as well. So I can talk in the meantime, but basically one of the things that we kicked off last year that you might have seen signage for is the Sunny Cambridge program, a program to help people save even more energy in addition to efficiency by getting solar at the same time. Does this look better? Yes, that's right. So we're taking the lessons from that solar program and kind of streamlining it in with the great programs that Marge talked about, so that we really want it to be a very, you know, easy to process package of energy options where you can do it all in one go. So basically, the Sunny Cambridge program and our solar program offers a free solar assessment, so you can get an understanding of what your revenue could be from putting solar on your roof. And you get free quotes back from installers so you can see some of those mechanics. As part of this, we include a multifamily solar advisor service. This is no cost to buildings. It's something that the city is sponsoring to, you know, make sure you can get an understanding of your revenues from a solar system, to help get quotes from the installer marketplace. But ultimately, to kind of work through some of these complex decision-making pieces of solar for condos or apartment buildings, you know, these questions that can seem a little bit intimidating. If you're in a condo building, are there roof right agreements that need to be signed? If you are, you know, in a large multi-meter building, where's that solar tying into? So up next, we have Aaron King, who's our one of the consultants in the multifamily solar service. From Zapotec Energy, so I'll turn it over to him. But so I just want to say that they've worked with about 50 buildings over the last year in Cambridge, multifamily buildings, to figure out how they can go solar, to figure out some of those, like, you know, benefit sharing, cost sharing, and agreement principles. As you can see in the lower right, we held a workshop last summer for multifamily solar, standing room only. A lot of people are really excited about how they can save even more money on top of efficiency by getting solar. So the great thing is we've had the opportunity to work with Eversource to really kind of integrate this into one program. So if you're interested, you can come talk to me or Aaron, but really if you, to get started, basically any building that signs up for an efficiency assessment through MassSave, if it's a Cambridge building, you'll also be asked if you want to participate in the Cambridge Solar free assessment. And then you'd be referred over to Aaron's team. And you would need to basically just sign a release that says, you know, some of your electrical data could be shared with the team so that the assessment can be sized according to the past usage. So if you're interested, participate in MassSave, you know, tell them you're interested also in the Cambridge Solar program, and we can get you started in sort of a very streamlined decision-making process. Aaron? So just, you're queued up right after this.
Okay. is there something on this?
No, just
Okay, gotcha. All right, can everyone hear me without the mic? I'll just try and speak loudly. All right, there we go. My name is Aaron King. I am a design engineer at Zapotec Energy. I also do a lot of work in policy analysis and consulting. We're primarily a design firm. We do some design build projects. We've done many in the city of Cambridge. Our founder, Paul Lyons, has...
Sorry to interrupt. It's being recorded, so unless you speak into the mic.
Sure. As I was saying, our founder, Paul Lyons, has been in the solar industry for over 20 years. He also lives in Cambridge and has been working on projects throughout Cambridge for over a decade. Basically, Zapotec has been hired by the city of Cambridge. We started working for Cambridge under their Sunny Cambridge program last year, and we've been helping multifamily and condominium buildings for the past year, giving them just kind of advice about what their best option to go solar is, how to finance the project, how to kind of actually structure the agreements within it. There's kind of a different path for condominiums compared to multifamily. It seems like we have both in the crowd. Obviously, with condominiums, you have more stakeholders, more decision makers. There also can be roof right issues. We've seen that multifamily can be a little bit more straightforward, as commonly there's just one decision maker. So under this program, basically, what will happen is you guys will sign on to get a free kind of solar estimate. We will create a solar model for you. We'll estimate how much solar capacity your roof can handle. We'll provide you with a preliminary financial model showing the payback of the system, the expected returns on the system, as well as any subsidies that you'll be qualified for, and tax credits that you may or may not qualify for. Will kind of help you determine the decision-making process, especially if it's a condominium association. And then one of the reasons that we've actually been hired is not only for the multifamily and condominiums, it's also for the installers that would actually be bidding on these type of projects. And so Energy Sage is actually kind of a competitive platform where you submit your building, and then different installers will bid and give you different quotes, which you can then compare within Energy Sage. And so one thing that Energy Sage noticed was that multifamily buildings and condominium associations didn't get a lot of good bids. And that's because there can be a few extra steps that people don't realize when they submit their building in Energy Sage. And so a lot of the installers have said, we're not going to waste our time bidding on these projects because, they're just low percentage projects and the owners of these buildings don't actually understand what it's going to take. And so we're kind of a filter. We kind of are there to help you understand your financing options, how you'll actually design, own, and build and own the system, and kind of write that into a nice report with the suggestion to both you and then also to the installers. So we will now put your property into Energy Sage with a brief report of some of the information that we've taken in so that you can get better, kind of more bids from installers, and you'll have more options to look through. Yep.
So are you working with the city of Cambridge, but the service that you provide to multi-family owners, is a cost to them?
No. Yeah. So this is kind of the initial review that we'll do. If you kind of check the box that I'd also like a solar assessment, by the time somebody shows up at your door, I think one of the representatives from MassSave, who are actually going to kind of conduct your initial audit, they'll have a report for you like this. We will kind of show you an overlay of where the solar panels will go on your roof, as well as the annual production, the efficiency. It takes into account shading. We'll look at obstructions. Some people we may be able to rule out immediately and say, this is not suitable for solar, there's too much shading. Another thing I might as well bring up right now, just to keep you guys aware, is that Eversource has Their network is a little different, especially down Mass Ave. So right in Central Square, parts of Porter Square, their network is not really suitable to have solar interconnected to it. So sometimes we're able to screen out if somebody's right on Mass Ave. We have experience and we know that Eversource won't allow you to interconnect a solar PV system, and many of you may have properties in that area. Finally, I'll just kind of give you a little insight into some of the things that we'll be looking at. Here's kind of a typical building. You got solar on the top, and you can see you have all these meters on the bottom. This is kind of showing where there's a designated solar meter, utility meter, connected to the solar inverter, and so that will kind of be tracking all of the output of the solar, which will get pumped into the grid. Then that will accrue net metering credits. It's independent of your house meter and your unit meters. You will accrue net metering credits, which you can then transfer to your house meter or even the meter of another building, as long as it's kind of in this Eversource territory, which is the greater Boston area, all of northeastern Massachusetts. That's one option. Another option for a landlord-owned building would be to interconnect the solar directly to the house panel. And so you would actually see a large reduction in energy use on your house panel and on your kind of house loads. And then further, you could even kind of split the system up and feed it directly to different units in a condominium. And so we kind of will look at your site, look at your building, understand what your options are, and what would be best for you financially. All of these different cases that I just described are actually kind of incentivized in different ways, and the financial models look a little bit different. And so we'll kind of help you navigate through what the best option for you is. Yes.
So we have a rubber roof, and we handle it very, gently and every few years. It's been treated like every 2 years, and it's been replaced every 10 years. And so how does the rubber roof live together with the solar panels?
Absolutely. Yeah, we definitely install on rubber roofs, on EPDM roofs. That will be part of the assessment that we'll complete for you. The age of your roof will be very interested in the type of roof. And we'll kind of just get you understand there's basically different types of PV systems for different roofs, right? Whether it's fully attached to your roof in like a sloped roof, flat roofs sometimes are actually just weighed down with blocks, so your roof actually isn't penetrated at all. There's just kind of cinder blocks that kind of weigh the panels down. And so we'll kind of be able to assess your roof for that. Yes, absolutely. Yeah, if the roof is maybe kind of 10 plus years old and you expect it only to live, the panels, the lifetime of the system is about 20 years. And so if you expect to, replace your roof within 10 or 15 years, we would advise that you would want to replace your roof first. All right, thank you. And I'll be around afterwards if you have questions specifically about your building or about the process.
Next we have Peter McPhee from Mass CEC.
Thanks, Beverly. And what Marge asked, the question she asked earlier, I'd like to actually repeat, but instead of Mass Save, for the Massachusetts Clean Energy Center. So who here has actually heard of the Massachusetts Clean Energy Center? Oh, good, okay. So about half of you. That's better than I thought, actually, because we have not had probably as good outreach as Mass Save has. We're a little bit smaller, but in many ways we're a very similar organization. While Mass Save handles the energy efficiency incentives and rebates in Massachusetts, we're focused on the renewable energy support and incentives in the Commonwealth. But at the same time, we're funded in a very similar manner where all of you and the tenants pay surcharges on the electricity bills, which come to us and to our trust fund, which is given out back to you in the form of rebates and incentives. So it's essentially your money to use, and we really want to promote having that be used more frequently. So that's what I'm going to be talking about today. So Mass CEC is a multi-tiered organization, but what I'm going to talk today about is really that we focus on driving adoption, and that goes for residential, commercial, multifamily sectors. We have a host of programs there. We also have programs to support workforce development, industry development, that I'm not going to really get into as much today. So first I'll start off by saying one of the big drivers for our programs is that heating comprises about 30% of the overall energy use in the Commonwealth. So that's, put that in perspective, that's more than the entire electricity sector combined just in heating. It also translates to about a third of our greenhouse gas emissions in the state, and that's what really drives us to have the programs that we're doing. And I'm willing to bet that for many of you, when you're looking at your buildings, heating also comprises probably the majority cost for energy use in that building. Much more than electricity in many situations. When we compare this to our aggressive greenhouse gas emissions reduction goals in the Commonwealth, we see that we're looking to have 25% reductions by 2020, which is only a few years from now. So we're trying to take some pretty aggressive measures to get there, and ultimately by 2050 to reduce greenhouse gas emissions to 80% below 1990 levels. So that takes quite a bit of effort from many entities here, but our side of it is to, in my programs, is we're focusing on driving the adoption of what we call renewable heating technologies. So we made a 5-year, $30 million commitment for incentives to support the adoption of these technologies. That goes residential, commercial, industrial facilities. And I'd say it's a little bit simpler than MassSave, and they have a much bigger program, but our programs are really designed to serve, all buildings that are out there. We have some differentiators in there, but basically if you have a building, you want one of these systems, like, we're going to provide a grant for it. We do also administer the low and moderate income incentives for these kinds of facilities. And all of our incentives can also be used in combination with the MassSave incentives. So there are, while they do efficiency, we do renewables. There are places where they start to kind of get a little blurry and gray, and we support, to some extent, the same technologies on a couple occasions, but for different reasons. Which is also okay, and it's really a benefit to the customers out there. So I'm going to talk briefly through the technologies. I'm going to be focusing on solar thermal and air source heat pumps, which are really probably the greatest opportunity for this sector. But solar thermal, which was sort of the original solar, you can see here on this house, those are collectors that directly heat water from the sun and circulate that to offset domestic hot water needs in buildings. So it's a technology that's been around for a while, but has really become a pretty mature and reliable technology over the last 10 years, I'd say, and can really do a great job of offsetting up to 80% of hot water usage. We support biomass heating, like this automated pellet boiler here on the top right, which operates very similarly to an oil boiler, but instead of having oil delivered, you have a truck full of pellets delivered maybe 3 times per year. They're fully automated. They serve the entire house, and they tie in with a hydronic heating system. We don't see many of these in the metro areas, but occasionally we do. But it's really a great technology. Cold climate air source heat pumps is probably one of the most popular technologies we're supporting now. So this uses the ambient outdoor air temperature to derive thermal energy for the inside of the building. So it's an electrical heating system, but it can operate 2 to 3 to 4 times more efficiently than a traditional electric resistance heating system. And similarly, this bottom picture is a ground source heat pump system. Also not a great opportunity when you're in a very dense city, but for places where there is a yard, we have seen some of these projects developed with vertical wells, and they operate very similarly to an air source heat pump. But instead of using the outdoor air temperature, they use the nearly constant temperature underground for heating and cooling a building. They're very, very high efficiency and have long lifespans. One of our top installers is actually based out of Medford, so she does a good number of sort of metro area installations. So it's still an option, but I'm not going to talk too much about that today.
Peter, and this building is actually heated by ground source.
Yeah, right. So yeah, and there's not a big yard outside or anything, but there are opportunities, and it's worth considering. But just take a little more planning, probably. Absolutely. So here across on this graph, we see on the left vertical axis, we see sort of the greenhouse gas emissions per year, which is really a surrogate for how we value these technologies. And the bottom, we have different heating types for different technologies. Starting at the far left, we have electric resistance heating. So does anybody have electric resistance heating in some of their buildings? So yeah, pretty expensive old technology, but at the same time, sometimes it's hard to replace. Fuel oil is also relatively dirty burning technology, propane. As we get towards the right, we see some of what we're calling our clean heating technologies. So we have air source heat pumps, biomass pellets, ground source heat pumps. And the far right, we have a heat pump coupled with solar PV. So essentially, you're getting electricity from the sun, which is clean, and then you're using that to heat your home, and that can really be a carbon-free heating technology. So these are the technologies we're focusing on, our clean heating, cooling technologies, and essentially that difference between the dirtier heating oils is really what drives the rebate funding towards these projects. So that's why we give so much money, is because they really do have reductions of 50 or 75% from the traditional fossil fuel heating. So it's a dramatic reduction for greenhouse gas emissions. And the right situation can be a cost-saving mechanism as well, especially if you have electric resistance heat or if it's a delivered fuel, as Marge mentioned, with oil or propane. While there are still some opportunities for the right application for other buildings that might not have those fuels. So as I mentioned, mini split air source heat pumps. Another survey question, who has seen these before, had experience with them? Great, yeah, this is a technology that really entered the market maybe a little over 5 years ago, but many people have heard of air source heat pumps in the past and maybe not performing well in this climate because it gets too cold and they can't handle it when it gets cold. But these new technologies are designed to operate oftentimes down to -5, -20 degrees below Fahrenheit. We have some of these installed in northern Maine, Vermont, Alaska, and people love them, and they can certainly power through those winters, and they do the same here. And they do it efficiently, like I said, 2 to 3 times more efficiently than traditional electric resistance heat. Another benefit of these is that they're very versatile. They have their own distribution system, so you don't need to tie it in with your ductwork. What we see here is a wall cassette. So essentially, you don't need to put vents in your ceiling or through your floor, but the refrigerant goes directly through the wall in a very small hole to these indoor units. But there can also be floor-mounted versions of this and integrated ceiling cassettes. But typically, this is much easier to do than to build ductwork in a building that doesn't have that already, which can be very expensive. Our incentives for these technologies, we look at them per single unit or per 12,000 BTU capacity, and our base incentive $625, but for public buildings 800 and affordable housing that goes up to 1,500. So pretty good incentives. And for larger multifamily buildings, these can really scale up. So we can be supporting hundreds of these systems in a building through our grants. A program that we'll be launching in the next few weeks is for VRF air source heat pumps. So VRF stands for variable refrigerant flow. So it's essentially like a really big mini split. But they're great technologies that operate in many of the same principles, but serve 50 or 60 units at a time instead of a couple of rooms. So we can see this on larger buildings, commercial buildings, multifamily buildings. And while mini splits are oftentimes tied in with the traditional heating system, these can serve the entire heating cooling needs of a building. And both of these heat pumps do provide both the air conditioning and the heating, so you kind of get double bang for the buck. You don't have to install a heating system plus an air conditioning unit. You kind of get them both in one. So that's one of the great benefits for the occupants of the building, and for the owners, where you don't have to maintain the two systems. And these systems are pretty neat, where they can heat certain parts of a building while cooling other parts of the building at the same time, which really offers increased comfort, even above and beyond the best fossil fuel-based systems here. And again, these are very versatile and can be used for retrofit projects probably more easily than if you were to do a hydronic distribution system or ductwork. We have similar grant levels that are a little bit larger for these technologies. And again, this can go up to pretty large facilities serving 50 or 100 units and still get a significant grant. If they're larger than that, you'll still get the maximum grant, but it won't keep scaling up as you go along. But this would probably serve most buildings in Cambridge. And then lastly, for solar hot water and solar heating, as I mentioned, these technologies typically are used to offset domestic hot water needs up to about 80% if they're installed correctly. The pictures here we have on the left the flat plate collectors, and on the right we have behind the PV we have evacuated tube collectors, just two different types of the same technology, both of which work well in this climate. These do have some of the similar constraints of PV, where you have to have roof space or area to place these, and but that being said, they're a little more resilient to areas that are shaded, while PV really doesn't operate very well if there's some shading, partial shading. These systems can operate pretty well during those periods. And the incentives here, I'm not going into details here, but they typically cover from us 25 to 40% of the costs for a private entity and more if you're a municipal or affordable housing entity, and go all the way up to about $100,000. On top of that, the same tax credit that applies to solar PV for 30% of costs. These technologies are also eligible. So with that, I'll conclude, but here's our website, which you can hopefully find pretty easily from masscc.com. We also want to serve as a resource for questions that come up. Our sort of hotlines at the bottom there, and it's also on our handouts here at our table. I do have information for each of these programs, just on a high level, but you can go to our website and get the latest about how to find companies that do this kind of work, some of the benefits of the technologies, or how to contact us just to talk and figure out if this might be a good opportunity for what you're working on.
If there are buildings that want to take advantage of both the capacity program incentives and custom measures, like you want to know the heat recovery ventilator and Mass CEC clean heating stuff, is there a need to coordinate, that work, or can do we just kind of work with each of your organizations separately and it all comes together at the end?
There's not a need to coordinate. I mean, we try to coordinate sort of behind the scenes, but there's no, to be honest, the utilities have some more specific requirements and regulations that they have to follow than we do. We're a little more flexible. So in some ways we can simplify our programs because of that, where we can make awards earlier on in the process. It can be a little more prescriptive, where you know the kind of amount of money you're going to get ahead of time when you're in the decision-making process. And the fuel type that you're offsetting, those kinds of decisions don't apply to us at all. So it's a little more flexible, which makes it easy from our end to to coordinate where there's not really any conflict between the two.
So I'm sorry to clarify Megan's question. Can you actually use both programs in terms of having a grant and then still having a custom rebate from the utility for the electrical savings that the VRF or the air source utility is going to deliver?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm not sure if the questions are showing up in the recording, but the question was, can you use both incentives from Mass AV and Mass CEC? Answer is yes, you can use both.
And remember, before you do any renewable, what are you going to do? Efficiency first.
I agree. Yep. And the way that works is as you tighten the envelope, you're actually reducing the amount of heating you need, which means that you can spend less money on your heating system. So it's a really important thing to do in the right order. You tighten your envelope, the insulation, the air sealing, and then you're actually saving a lot of money by not spending as much on the system, as well as the energy usage for the system.
Are there any incentives for reinforcing roof in order to solar?
No, we don't provide incentives for roof reinforcements. Our incentives are sort of typically capacity-based, so we would, it would be for the technology, but sometimes other costs can be rolled into project cost. But we'll still be providing the same amount of money, dependent more on the size of the technology installed versus the cost of the project.
Can I add to that? So our understanding is, I'm not a tax attorney, but some of the repairs needed to support the solar program are eligible for federal tax credits.
Yeah, I've experienced that as well in terms of being able to particularly couple an insulated roof, a new roofing with a solar installation. You can put that full value toward the tax credit is what I personally experienced.
That's a 30% federal.
I don't think it does. I don't think the heat loan covers. It covers things including like some pre-weatherization needs, such as asbestos and knob and tube wiring can be covered, I believe, but not necessarily roofs or structures.
Yeah, I have to check on that. I apologize. I don't have the full
And these technologies are also eligible for the heat loan through expanded state support of them. For multifamily, okay. Yeah, so, yeah, sorry, that does apply for, so 3 units or 4 units or fewer would be eligible for the heat loan.
So if you need to replace your heating system, you're talking to Mass Save about emergency boiler, heat pump, how would you coordinate? Would you go to each and do a comparison?
Yeah, typically when you're when someone's comparing different technologies installed at their facility, I think it's mostly up to the homeowner to be, or the building owner to be making those decisions. We're absolutely open to consultation for questions. We don't necessarily recommend a specific technology, but we can answer questions about the technologies and when they might make sense. And contractors have been very helpful, I think, to kind of play off each other for what the cost will be and what the savings will be. But it certainly is, there's a lot to sort of coordinate and understanding the incentive packages that are out there and the different costs that you might see through the different technologies.
Thank you, Peter. Yep. So our last speaker is Jessica Spanier from New Ecology. And New Ecology, if you guys aren't familiar with them, is a nonprofit consulting firm that does a lot of work on multifamily buildings. So you'll see their name a lot with green certification, the Energy Star, that kind of stuff. And Jessica's going to talk a little bit about cost savings that you can see with energy efficiency.
Yes. So actually, to answer your question, we would be a great company to call as far as coordination between all the different incentive programs and figuring out what's best for your building. New Ecology, we are a nonprofit, and we're kind of a one-stop shop. We will take buildings or portfolios and walk you through the process of gathering your data, benchmarking your buildings, doing the design, the overseeing of construction, and then monitoring the performance of the building afterwards to make sure that everything is going as well as you would expect it to. So one thing that we really champion, as Bev mentioned before, is to target your buildings through benchmarking. Whether you're tracking your data through a program like Energy Star's Portfolio Manager or WeGoWise, or even just tracking it in individual Excel spreadsheets, it's really important to be able to understand your building performance as is, to identify the opportunities that are out there for your building. Both to identify the best and worst performers within your portfolio, but also to think about the building's performance in terms of asset management strategies. If a building's coming up for refinancing, how is it performing? What kinds of energy efficiency improvements can you roll into an upgrade at this point? So what I have is an example of a client's portfolio we looked at. It was a bigger portfolio. It was about 100 buildings, but we do this kind of same analysis for smaller portfolios or even on an individual building scale to look at where the opportunities lie in your portfolio in terms of gas, electric, water. And one of the things I think is important to note, as all these incentives are kind of targeted around the energy, water is really, really important to look at. In this specific client's portfolio, we found that 50% of their opportunity, almost $250,000 of water savings. Water would be the place for that portfolio to target and really look at to gain the efficiency. And this chart kind of breaks out each of the developments within a client's portfolio and shows, especially on the development on the right, it's a development that's coming up for refinancing. If there's huge water opportunity there, over $100,000 of savings to be gained. And it's also important to note that even if you've had a building that's been serviced by one of the utility programs in the past, it doesn't mean that there's not still efficiency opportunities in that building. We've done a lot of measurement and verification in buildings that have gone through utility programs where we still find a lot of opportunity there on the gas and electric side. And another thing we also look at is the specific load profiles of the building. So for your gas use, if you see increased gas use in your building, is it coming more on the heating side or the hot water side? We've actually developed with a grant from the Massachusetts Clean Energy Center, a monitoring and optimization program that puts low-cost systems into your boiler rooms to be able to track Is there something going on with your hot water system or your heating system that's causing any kind of spikes or increased usage? So that was like a really fast overview of what New Ecology can do for you to help you target your buildings and walk you through the process of kind of coordinating all the different loans or incentives to be able to get the most savings out of your buildings. Cool.
Okay, well, thank you all for coming today.